Well, I'm coming to you live from the DNC, and guess who else is here? Planned Parenthood. Of course they are. They're in town for the DNC, and they're giving away more than just t-shirts, more than just stickers. Listen to this. They are handing out free abortions and vasectomies. A Planned Parenthood branch out of St. Louis posting this. Here we come, Chicago. Our mobile health clinic will be in the West Loop August 19th to 20th, providing free vasectomies and medication abortion. Emergency contraception will also be available for free without an appointment. Now, it's not only that, there is, and we'll put this picture up, an 18-foot IUD, 18 foot. I'll be on the lookout for it. I guess it will be kind of hard to miss, but they're calling this Frida Womb. That is the name of this 18-foot IUD here at the DNC. Emily, when you combine this with Kamala Harris being the first vice president to visit an abortion providing facility like Planned Parenthood, at a certain point, this starts to feel like celebrating abortion.
Hello. It is Monday and we are live and it's time for Pop and Politics. We are talking about the latest in hot topics, news, and entertainment. I'm KJ along with my amazing co-host. Of course, we have Yana.
Hello.
Shelly E. and Tyrone Keys of Soldiers of Finance right here on YouTube. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing good.
Great.
Good. As I always say, join the conversation by leaving a comment on YouTube or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. If you miss us here on YouTube, you can watch us on Rumble or listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify under the same name, Pop and Politics. Guys, we are an independent media, and if you want to support what we do, your super chats and donations go a long way in helping us produce conservative content. Any amount is appreciated. This is not just a podcast. This is a movement of God-fearing, truth-seeking, America-loving people that understand we are in urgent times, as you can see from the top of the show, with this DNC and how they started out. These people could actually win the election. We are in urgent times, and there's a target on our backs because we value freedom. But we must continue to stand. Let's stand together and subscribe so we can amplify this rallying call for freedom. All right, everybody, let's set it off. I want to get right into it. Again, the DNC kicked off today in Chicago. And as we said at the top of the show, they started off with abortion. Abortion is front and center. Abortion and LGBT is front and center at this DNC. Shelly, I want to start off with you. You saw that clip. I mean, is this weird or what?
Actually, it's not weird for the Democratic Party. But some people might call weird is that anything that is free or labeled as free, it will draw a lot of people. And unfortunately, many of those people happen to be Black people like you and I are. So you hear the word free, it's like Pavlov's dog. Free, free, free. And that's all that matters, even sucking your children down a sink.
Yeah, Yana, I mean, had the big IUD in the middle of the DNC convention. We have Christians who are really, rallying for the Democrat Party. How does this jive? Not even about the IUD, but they're giving out free vasectomies and abortion pills. This is the driving force for the Democrat Party. How does this jive with evangelicals, Muslims, Christians?
I don't know. I think the people who are who call themselves people of faith, who go to these events and who support these policies, I think they're completely lost. I think they do not know their own religion. They don't understand the scripture. They ignore it. They think that they think that they're smarter than God. I mean, honestly, it's like the Democrat Party, they have positioned themselves in the way that they know more than God himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Tyrone, again, they're kicking it off in Chicago with this type of things going on. What are your thoughts?
You know, it's tragic. And I think a lot of the young men who may take advantage of the free vasectomy, they're going to wake up after the religious fervor has worn off, having made a permanent decision at a political function, no less. And they're going to have a lot of regret. So I mentioned last week on the program that the left, they're really anti-religion, and that's not unique to the American left. That's just leftist everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they set up little demigods. This birth control thing is one of them. And of course, the demigods like birth control, climate change, all sit beneath the chief god, which is the government. So religious fervor, definitely, that's acting on these people and getting them to make permanent decisions at a political convention. It's just really strange.
It's very strange. And not speaking of strange, I mean the agenda. So I want you guys to take a look at this, how they have divided up the meetings today. So it's all by ethnicity. They have the not sure if you can see, they have here, oh, here we are. The Black Caucus meeting. They have a Hispanic caucus meeting, AAPI caucus meeting, Native American caucus, ethnic council meeting. I mean, is this what Americans want? Us to be divided up? You know, we go in our corners and we all caucus based off of our race. This is ridiculous.
I mean,
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
They have nothing to run on besides this. I mean, if they're running on this abortion, vasectomies, and racism. So that's really, they don't have anything else that they're really talking about. They're not talking about foreign policy. I mean, yeah, they're talking about some economic policies that really are not going to be good for America, but primarily, whenever you ask Kamala about anything, she just goes back to abortions and racism. That's really all that she has to say.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, and separating people by race, that's just a Marxist tactic.
Yeah. Well,
And
we've actually been
Democrats have
paying
been doing
for
that forever.
We've been paying for years because our Congress has various caucuses by ethnicity or whatever demographic group you want to call it. We've been paying for it from taxpayers, mandated, if you will, for paying for Congress. The same thing happens. But let me say this, and this might be, I don't know, sound harsh, but you know, I don't really give a damn. Quite frankly, I'm actually glad that these people have an IUD that they don't want to reproduce. I'm not talking about using abortion as a form of birth control. I'm talking about that they don't want to reproduce. I'm okay with that if they don't want to, because I don't want their little spawns being taught and trained by their local loony parents to come up and still, you know, perpetuate this communist Marxist ideology in America. So I'm okay if they don't want to reproduce. I'm totally okay with that.
Okay.
You know, the Democrats, the left has been separating people into little, you know, groups forever. And this benefits them to balkanize the American public. They want us distracted and divided. And this is just an extension of that. It's amazing that they're so open with it these days that they're even doing it at their convention. They don't want unity. They don't want it. They want chaos, division, and distraction.
Yeah, and in the you should see how on the front page of the Democratic National Convention, they have something called a land acknowledgement. Take a look at this. I have it here. So this is the front page. It says the Democratic National Convention Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by ancestors and descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. We honor the communities native to this content and recognize that our country was built on indigenous homelands. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous people throughout history who have protected our lands, waters, and animals. And it goes on. I mean, is this necessary, Shelley?
For them, it is for what they want to put forth and the ideology that they want. Look, they are on American soil. Every country and every state, if you will, not state, United States, but states around the world have been built on prior empires, prior countries. Hell, go over to the Middle East, the Persian Gulf. I mean, the Persian countries. They are built on top of each other to no end, if you will. These people want something different than America, than the United States of America. And they have zero, like the goose eggs on Kamala's page, they have zero qualms about stating what they want. The Republicans, we're the ones who have qualms about it. We're the ones who cower and don't want to offend people. We're the ones who do that while they go around spewing their basically almost, I'm going to say their evil ideologies to transform the United States of America. They are totally unashamed about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not just a one-off. This is something Kamala Harris has been stating for years. Here she is a couple years ago, I believe when she was running in 2019, talking about it. This is clip 7.
First, let me just say, I strongly believe and take very seriously that we must acknowledge that the government of the United States stole land, took land from the tribes, and that there must be a restoration of that ownership for those lands that were possessed by the tribes. So that is a value I hold very dearly and very strongly.
This is a presidential candidate.
Right.
Tyrone, what are your thoughts here on that?
You know, it's funny that she would be okay serving as a senator and then presidential candidate for the same nation that she says is, you know, has committed all of these atrocities. So she's a part of that machine. And I always tell people, look, if you want to complain about the lands that were stolen, I was having this conversation with a woman quite some time ago, and she was fervent. Okay, we need to give land back. I said, hey, you own a house? Go get your deed and just find a Native American and start with you. Okay. And I didn't hear any more from her. So look, the Democrats, they've got their headquarters down on South Capitol Street. It's a start. Just deed. It's got to be worth a lot of money. It's in DC. Deed it over to an indigenous tribe that was local to the area, you know, back when you Democrats stole it in the first place. Start with you.
Right, right, exactly. Before I get your response on this, Yana, I want to acknowledge a super chatter here. Guys, thank you so much. Life Goals, she says, love you guys, or he says, love you guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that super chat. And thank you for watching. This is ridiculous. And Yana, you know, you deal a lot in education. Is this something that needs to be taught in schools now with this?
It is being taught, unfortunately. That is something that is in the public schools, especially, is being taught about stealing land, and you know, that this country wasn't founded on right principles. It's really scary that the children in this country are not taught to value and cherish the history of this country. And the thing is that there are difficult subjects in history, and they can be discussed, later when children grow up, when maybe high school, college. You can have debates, moral debates about what really happened, but you do not teach very young children that this country has stolen lands, because actually it's more complicated than that. When the Europeans were here, there were all sorts of treaties being signed between the Europeans and the Native Americans. Native American tribes were fighting amongst themselves, so they would get together and ally with Europeans in order to fight a tribe that they were in war with. So it's complicated. And really, you need to teach children how to love and appreciate this country, regardless of difficult history. Because if you don't do that, then you don't have patriots. You're not going to have people who are going to protect this country in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of land, I mean, let's talk about what they've had to do in Chicago just to have this DNC convention here. In preparation for it to be held in Chicago, they spent an estimated $50 million on security, including walls, concrete barriers, fencing, and the use of Chicago City snow plows. I mean, this place looks like, like Baltimore, all the boarded up windows, everything's boarded up. And they did it because they were afraid, Chicago businesses were afraid of looting. So they did it to prevent the breaking of glass, vandalism, and other demonstrations that are expected for this convention. Now, they didn't have to do this in Milwaukee, did they?
No,
well, they tend to do when you have conventions, they do have some security measures in place, right?
I'm boarding up the businesses and stuff.
It depends on where. I don't know. I can't remember what part of Milwaukee they were in, but that is common when you have a lot of people coming in. Big conventions, you don't know, the businesses don't have any necessary, depending on how far away they are. Let me say it that way.
I've never heard of such. Usually, if you have a convention,
they do it for the traffic, the security. They don't want people coming to loot because they're not going to have as much foot traffic as they normally would, because a lot of the streets are blocked off.
Usually, if you have a convention of some kind coming to a city, it's welcomed because they know they're getting an influx of people who are going to patronize these businesses.
I agree.
Not
It's
board
both.
up the businesses.
It's both. It's not one or the other. It's both and.
This is ridiculous. I've never heard of such. Usually, if they have a convention, they would not board up businesses. They're doing this because they know these leftist nuts are coming, and they're coming to demonstrate and riot and loot like they have done all across the country.
Exactly. When you have people who do not love this country, these are Democrats, like we were just talking about. They do not have respect, love for this country. They think this country can be destroyed, and that's why they are looting. And so, of course, when they have this type of convention, with what you said, with the abortions and the vasectomies, to me it seems like some kind of cult festival, with like sacrifice. So that's really, they came there to sacrifice their babies and to participate in this debauchery. That's really what they're all about.
Remember, I forget which DNC it was. It was who was running, and they actually debated whether or not they should add Christ or the Christian God somewhere in their platform, and they refused to do it. They had a vote, and 3 times, which was auspicious. They basically denied him thrice. Okay. They said no. Okay. So they've been on this godless kick for quite some time, overtly. All right.
Obama conventions.
I think you're right. Yeah. So, they just amp it up more and more. I guess, at 2028, they'll just go ahead and have a flaming statue of Baal and, just say, this is who we are,
Yep.
Yeah, well, they'll probably be able to at that point. I mean, people don't seem to be rejecting this like you would think they would. You would think people would, it's sort of like with me with well, you know how you just get enough is enough. Like you say, wait a minute, all right, I'm holding my nose to support these people, but then it's like, this is going way too far. This is going way too far. And I don't see as many people as you would think, especially so-called Christians, so-called faith-based people. You would think they would have had enough. I mean, I'm not even say vote for Trump. Like I said, if you are a Democrat and you're sitting there watching all of this and you saying, man, this is crazy, I can't vote for this, I wouldn't even say vote for Trump, but I definitely wouldn't say support this woman and this party.
I mean, I can say why this is happening in the Christian community from my perspective.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's because of this idea that Christians now have that there shouldn't be any judgment. So, I've been hearing it since I came to this country. Oh,
right. That's part of it, Yon. I agree.
Don't judge. Christ didn't judge, or Christ is love. It's all love. You just have to, and from their perspective, love is just acceptance. And just accepting of people how they are, however they are, and it's their choice, and that is what love is to them. And so there's this perversion that's of Christianity that has been happening in this country and probably in other Western countries, and it's infiltration of, I believe, these Satanists who actually want to destroy Christianity from within, and it's an insidious way to do it, to say, actually Christianity is all accepting of all these behaviors.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that these leftists, progressives, mostly 99% of the Democratic Party, they hate America. But these are the same people who claim to be the tolerant, peaceful ones. They hate America. They hate anyone who stands for and with America. They hate what America stands for, because ultimately they don't want you or us to live in freedom. They want to rule over us. That's ultimately what their goal is, to wipe America as we know it off the map. They hate. And when I say hate, I mean they literally hate America. They will benefit from it because it keeps them in power, but they ultimately hate it for everyone else.
Absolutely. And power is a very strong factor in this power, and that power could come from any and everybody. Evil, things they will support it as long as they're getting power and money. And we saw it today with the Oversight Ways and Means Committee letting out this stuff about Biden. Basically, this man, and again, I haven't really looked into all of the information that they provided today, but the investigators put out a 300-page report with apparently overwhelming evidence demonstrating that Biden participated in getting money for his office, that he was being paid by foreign interests. And I think they said in as much as like $27 million from foreign sources. So, and we're going to talk about this a little later in the week. But if this is true, they're saying that this is actually the evidence that they have is impeachable. It's impeachable for Biden, even though it's the end of his term, and his family peddled influence for over $27 million in foreign sources.
I saw the report. I haven't read it like you haven't read it yet, but this is not surprising, at least to me, because during the course of Biden's, tenure, Biden has been called, or at least known to be, one of the most corrupt politicians to ever set foot in the United States Congress and Senate.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, and this is how these people have worked, and they have the help of the media pushing these lies, but they paint him as one of the most honest politicians to ever grace the presidential mantle. They literally are saying that he's the most honest, the best president within our lifetime. Same thing with today's DNC. They're painting it as like the most joyful. They're using this word joy. It's joyful when you have all these protesters out there screaming cuss words at police.
Well, Biden, he might actually be the most honest among that group. Okay, which, you know, they probably telling the truth. You know, look at Nancy Pelosi. All right, and the wealth that she's been able to accumulate. She's far from the only one. In fact, I think Joe was probably more honest than any one of them because he sat on international television and told you that he basically extorted Ukraine in order to take the heat off of his son and keep the money coming in. So, you know, we are in a government, they talk about protecting democracy, but what they really mean to say is that they want to protect their kleptocracy, their plutocracy. That's what they really want to maintain.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I want to move on to Kamala's economic policies. So she has finally started leaking out a little bit, almost sort of like a yeast infection. She's been leaking out a little bit policy proposals. And one of the policy proposals that she has been kind of leaking is her economic policy. So she's basically pushing price controls. She's pushing price controls. She's also pushed out $25,000 for first-time home buyers. And I believe she said, that's some of the things that she's been pushing out. And she's gotten a lot of flack for this stuff. I want you guys to take a look at her. This is her answering some questions regarding this. Again, she's got a yeasty mouth, and it's almost like little leaks of yeast that she's been leaking out with this stuff. This is clip number 1.
You unveiled your economic policies last week.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you're going to pay for those? And can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%. So that's a lot of the work. And then what we're doing in terms of the tax credits, we know that there's a great return on that investment. And when we increase home ownership in America, what that means in terms of increasing the tax base, not to mention property tax base, what that does to fund schools, again, return on investment. I think it's a mistake for any person who talks about public policy to not critically evaluate how you measure the return on investment. When you are strengthening neighborhoods, strengthening communities, and in particular the economy of those communities, and investing in a broad-based economy, everybody benefits, and it pays for itself.
All right, so there you have her. So I want to talk about this. We had a show on Friday, and we had a gentleman on who's on the right, but he was actually saying that these things she's proposing are good. He's saying that, for instance, he said Walgreens, many times they have been shown to have inflated their prices over the last several years, and they've been caught doing this and have gotten in trouble for it. And so he was sort of comparing that to Kamala's plan to do some type of price control from the government standpoint to stop things like this. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Tyrone.
Well, first of all, I want to say that Stalin was the front man, Pol Pot front man, Mao front man. They don't need, the far left Marxists have decided we're not going to do that anymore. The real front man is going to be in the background. We'll have a sock puppet we can just talk through, and they'll be so interchangeable that we will never have to take heat again. We can just pop them out interchangeably. Biden's not working out. All right, throw him away. Install new sock puppet, Kamala Harris. So with regard to, let's take the price caps first. I saw the show on Friday. The gentleman apparently does not comprehend the concept of supply and demand. Now, forget the Soviet Union. They did the whole price cap thing, okay? Let's just focus on the United States of America. Back in 1971, Nixon said that he was going to impose price caps and wage caps as well. Those price caps eventually led to a lot, but one of the most notable artifacts that come out of that was the gas shortage. Why? Because when you cap the price of any good or service, you're not doing anything about the demand. The demand remains. So now it becomes less profitable or not profitable at all to supply the good or the service to meet the demand. Now, how did that look? Well, like I said, you had folk demanding gasoline, but they couldn't get it. They couldn't get the demand filled because the providers downstream, it became too expensive for them to meet the demand, and there wasn't a potential for profit in it. So the supply went away. You actually had folk back in the 70s, they would go by the last digit on their license plate, and they would split it up into odd and even days. Okay, that's how that happened here in the United States. Another outcome of that was they put a price cap on chicken, but they didn't put a price cap on chicken feed. Okay, so it made feeding the chickens prohibitively expensive. So Americans, farmers, they actually drowned millions of chicks because they just couldn't afford to feed them. There was no profit in it anymore. So this is what happens. The gentleman Chaotic said something about how it was, he alluded to the fact that maybe it was inhumane to have these high prices. Actually, if you set a price cap, you're hurting people because now you are making it much more difficult for them to get the good or the service. Check Venezuela. I mean, this stuff is going on today, and it has happened in American history. All right. This isn't the Byzantine Empire we're talking about. We're talking about 50 years ago. Just open the book.
Yeah. And what about her other initiative about the housing? So she's saying she's going to give $25,000 to first time home buyers. And so on its face, people say, well, that's a great thing. First time home buyers need the money, and it's hard to get a home these days. What would that do to the market?
Okay, so what she's doing is she's looking back at 2008 when the market was totally different. At that point, you had a glut of houses. So they wanted to spur some demand. So they gave out a credit to go out and buy homes. All right. And it worked. But the market that we're dealing with today, we're undergoing a shortage of housing thanks to a lot of factors. But what she's going to do with that 25,000 is because there's a lack of supply, but still demand there. She's going to create more demand, and then that's going to increase the price of housing and get folk further away from being able to afford houses. The other thing she said in her speech about housing was that she was going to build she was going to work with industry to build 3 million houses. Okay. Now, mind you, this is the same administration that has spent $8 billion to build 7 charging stations. Okay. They said they were going to build thousands. They've only gotten through 7. So right now we're at $1 billion a charging station. God knows how much these $3 million houses will cost at the end of the day. But she doesn't understand, and it looks like nobody on her staff really understands the simple concept of supply and demand. I've said for years, once you win a primary, you should have to then go to the nearest community college and take a macroeconomics 101 course and come out of that with at least a B, and then you can go on and run in the general. Okay. These people don't understand this stuff at all.
No.
Yeah, Tyrone, I did get a B in my econ class. So back in undergrad, I did.
You present that report card and you can run for office.
Look, these words come to my mind. Ronald Reagan told us this. Be wary when you hear people say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Okay. So that, when anyone says that, first of all, government does not create anything except debt. Okay, and laws to take more money from the taxpayers, if you will, the producers. That's number one. Number two, the government involved in this. What is she going to build? Not just her, but there have been first-time home buyers programs for decades, right? Most of them have come from a number of them have come from banks, private institutions. A lot of them have come from the military. Why? Because military members actually sacrifice something to the country. And so this is a way of, I guess you want to call it part of their benefits package, or at least a part of a way of saying, let's help you. We took you out of the market for a number of years during your prime money-making years. We took you out. We didn't pay you market rates. So now we can help you establish yourself footing in the American soil that you protected. Okay. So the military has done that. Transparency. When I got a condo, my first home that I bought was a condo. I used my VA benefits to help me get the first time mortgage, or whatever you want to call it. So these programs have been around in the private sector. When the problem is, look at Fannie Mae and what is it, Fannie Mac? Like you said, Tyrone, just about a decade or so ago or more. Look what happened when they came in and inflated the market, okay? Inflated, overflated, whatever you want to call it. Look what the damage is that they did. They did to a whole lot of people with mortgages that they really couldn't afford and never should have gotten in the first place. Be wary when the government says, I can help. Look to me to help. We can do this. We will give you this, give you free. That's just another form of saying free. We'll take from those who produce and give to those who don't.
Yeah, and keep in mind, many of the first-time home buyers at these programs, they had stipulations. So you had to buy in a certain area, or you had to meet certain economic parameters before you could to qualify. Hers, she didn't even mention any of that.
Right.
No,
and this is socialism.
It is.
And continue that. It's just pure socialism. And there was a comment, one of the commentators said that her father is an economist, and yes, they do understand economics. I don't know, because there are people in socialist countries that think that they understand economics. They could be teaching economics, but from their socialist Marxist perspective. And they think, like I was saying before, they think that they're gods. They think that they can control everything. And the idea of socialized economics is when you have centralized control, and they really think that they can, pull the strings and create housing here and send the products here. And they don't understand that the market is like a living organism, and that you can't really control it, especially in a humongous country like the United States. And like Tyrone was saying, when you inject socialism into economy, you create shortages. Always, there's always shortages when the government tries to inflate the market, or control prices. So with housing, it's interesting that she's promising this $25,000, but when you have too much demand for housing, then right, the prices will go up. So that $25,000 is not going to be as valuable as it is right now. So they don't realize that the value of the dollar is going to keep dropping if they keep inflating or playing with the market so much.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And not only has she been criticized by people on the right, liberal media have actually slammed her on this policy. They're saying the policy was even too radical for ultra-left Washington Post, who lambasted her. And I quote, they said, when your opponent calls you communist, maybe don't propose price controls. That was like the headline on the Washington Post article. So, I mean, she's been getting blasted by people everywhere. Economists estimate that this new economic proposal will cost American taxpayers more than $1.7 trillion. So you have that on top of they're sending all this money overseas to this Ukrainian war that if she gets into office, surely won't stop. And no telling what additional wars we're going to find ourselves in. I mean, we're in trouble if this woman is elected.
Yeah. But KJ, don't make no mistake. Yeah. Make no mistake. The leftist liberal media, they're not upset with her for just because she wants to give this money. They're upset with her because they believe that she's taking money away from the spending and the taxes that they can collect. They're not doing it out of altruistic measures. They're not worried about us. It's on the flip side why they're upset with her.
They know these networks. They know that if we go down that road, it's definitely going to hurt the folk who advertise with them. So they can see a material impact on their revenues and profits if that happens. And, you know, Kamala Harris, and I did read the comment where the person said that, you know, it's by design. But again, you know, Kamala Harris, I don't care if her father is Copernicus. She doesn't understand. I mean, have you heard her talk? Kamala Harris is in such desperate need of a thesaurus. All right. And it's a shame that at this point in our history, think about it. She would not have been allowed to go on the tour of the White House 25 years ago, where they take you past and say, and there's where the president sits. She wouldn't have been able to do that. She's not qualified for the job. And all of these people, well, she was a prosecutor. Okay, great. Maybe that qualifies her to, I don't know, have her own television show like Judge Judy, maybe. I don't know. But not be president of the United States. She does not understand the economy. She does not understand geopolitics. Can you imagine? Can you imagine this woman sitting across from Xi Jinping? All right, and giggling and guffawing and cackling. I've never seen Xi Jinping smile. Okay, can you imagine this? I can't
imagine it. Unfortunately, I can't imagine it.
We may actually have to if this election.
We may do more than imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean we're less than 80 days out. You know, the mail-in voting and the early voting starts next month. It starts next month. This scam that they have pushed, I am so upset about that. I don't think anybody knows how upset I am about all this early voting election month. This should have been number one on Republicans' radar. Get us back to where we were prior to the scam-demic and stop all this early voting. We have election day, one day. They have given these people tons of time to just defraud the system, to do all kinds of fraud and meddling, and we just let it go on. We're in another election, and we're about to start voting next month. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
All right. We do have to move on. I do want to say, of course, Trump had the last word. He slammed her policy proposal also by saying, Comrade Kamala, he calls her, announced that she wants to institute socialist price controls. You saw that? Never worked before. It will cause rationing, hunger, and skyrocketing prices. So he said, calls her Comrade Kamala. Right. And that was the Axios article. It says economist Pan Harrisnomics.
And let me tell you something, the communists are real. I've met them. They call each other comrades, like for real. I was shocked, but no, they're here they're very vibrant in America. They have their meetings. They know who their candidates are.
Wow. Yeah. And she's not
KJ, real quick. One thing you're also going to see if she were able to implement price caps is you're going to see a black market, a thriving black market come up to address the needs. Okay. Because the economy, like Yana said, it's a living, one of you guys said it's a living thing. All right. So the demand is not going anywhere just because you put price caps in place.
Yeah. And here she is in this. I have a clip here where she's talking about snatching patents. This is clip number 4. Take a look.
I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it.
Wow.
I would like to snatch her head, or her, I don't know if that's a wig or pieces or whatever, but this woman, look, we thought Obama was bad. We thought Biden was worse than Obama, and to a degree he was. She is the epitome. She will literally, I believe, topple and tumble and tear down the rest of America as we know it. That's what I believe this woman would do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because she's the mandate.
Did you see the look in her eye when she said that?
Yeah.
It was orgasmic to her to say, yes, we can. Yeah, it was orgasmic to her.
And the key, the most important part of what she said there was you have to have the will to do it. She has the will. They have the will. Obama was the beginning. Now she's the mandate. So
this is really, really concerning. And this kind of rhetoric and this kind of fervor that she has to snatch something from people, because that is what happened when the communists took over Russia. They literally went and they took everything that people had because they had to share all this, whatever wealth they had, food, animals. They literally took everything. And the people that they used to do this were criminals. They literally opened the prisons.
What?
Yeah, they opened the prisons. And because, a normal person is not going to their neighbor and start robbing them. They realized we can't just make people rob each other. They're not going to do it. So there's literally information out there where Lenin would say, I need people who are cruel, who are, who do not have morals. And they opened up the prisons and had them do it.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge our super chatters here. Guys, thank you so much. All right, LAPD SWAT, thank you. Says Putin is encouraging Westerners who want to flee Western societies to settle in Russia, i.e. traditional values.
That is true. That is true. I just watched an interview of an American family that resettled in Russia.
Wow.
And the biggest reason was traditional values. They were Christians and they were afraid for their children, and that was their reason to move.
Okay. We have here Jude. Thank you so much, Jude. Says Republicans are too heavenly minded and no earthly good. Does anyone really believe that if any Republican was guilty of the Biden crimes, they wouldn't go after them viciously? I agree, Jude. Yep. Thank you. LAPD SWAT again. Thank you so much. Says FYI, next month, the UN of the future. When you talk the UN Summit, right? UN Summit of the future. When you talk to lib white women in your area, are they really nutty? I live in Texas. Yes, they are nutty.
Yeah. It doesn't make a difference if they're white. Is that Jude or LAPD?
No, LAPD SWAT.
It's the left is loony. They could be black, white, whatever, Asian, blue, or brown. The left, they are the loony ones. And I mean loony, not just cuckoo loony, but I mean, some of them, maybe some more than others, evil in that way, loony.
Certifiable. And speaking of them, that takes us to our next topic. So Michaela Montgomery has been making her rounds. She is the young lady who was featured at Trump's Pennsylvania rally a couple weeks ago. It was the first one he went to, I believe, since
in Atlanta.
Oh, was it Atlanta? Yes, right. You're right. Atlanta. She was featured at his Atlanta rally. She was the young lady who went to that Chick-fil-A, and then you have the video of him hugging her. And she had a great speech at that Atlanta rally. And now she was recently on C-SPAN, I believe. And she was responding to Democrats calling in and asking her questions about her stance of supporting conservatism. And they were awful towards her. Take a look here. This is clip number 3.
They're never going to let you in the club, okay? And you, like the movie Django, you are the character of Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know the exact terminology, but not Uncle Tom, but Uncle Tommy, or you were a complete sellout.
First of all, it sounded like that was a non-black person telling me that. So as a Democrat, that sounds pretty racial and pretty divisive. Next, it's very interesting that I, again, would be called names or be compared to fictional characters because of who I choose to support. Again, these people who are calling and making these derogatory statements about me, who I choose to support, are denying the fact that, again, who are you to tell me that my personal experience is invalid? I think that that's something that a lot of Democrats need to look within, because how have you tried? Kamala Harris is in office right now and has not tried to do anything about the border, has not tried to not tax people on tips, and has not tried to do anything about our failing education system. So everything that she's promising she can do for you on day one, she could do right now, but she's not trying to. So that's something to, for some Dems to take home. So are you telling me that with all the black wealth that exists here in Atlanta, with all the black millionaires that live here in Atlanta, why in the world do 92% of APS students are illiterate? Make it make sense. And we have Democratic mayors, we have Democratic city council members, we have Democratic commissioners, and for whatever reason, 92% of the kids here cannot read. That statistic did not exist in Nevada. So again, I don't know if it was the fact that I got lucky. I can't say that, oh my God, it's the teachers that suck out here. I would never demean our educators here in Atlanta. But what we can acknowledge is the numbers, sir. And so while you want to call me not smart, please tell me what your side has done to fix the illiteracy rate that we see in our black children. Absolutely nothing. And in fact, not only have they not done anything to address the illiteracy issue, but then they're further confusing your kids by telling them that men can give birth, by telling them that there's 53 genders, and that by telling them that your love for your best friend must mean that you are gay, you are a pansexual, asexual. Kids under the age of anything high school should not be thinking anything sexual, period. Sexual should not even be in their vocabulary. So for you to say that I'm not smart because I'm willing to call out all of the degeneracy that exists within our current education system only points to your lack of intelligence and your lack of initiative to actually do something in regards to saving our children and saving our schools.
All right. She didn't hold anything back, and she read him up one side and down the other. Shelley, what are your thoughts?
I loved it. Number one. Number two, this is what, we've been saying. I've certainly been saying that this is what Republicans need to do. We don't have to, cater or, cower from the racial or the epithets that they call us. No, bring the receipts, as they say. Bring the facts. Beat them, if you will, at the issues on which they put forth, because 99.999% of the issues that they claim to support and they want to pour more money in, they haven't worked. And who's getting the worst end of the stick? Most of the time, it's black people, black children, because we, as collectively, if you will, are still at the lower end of every social, economic indicator, even some psychological, mental indicators. We're still at the lower end. Nothing they have put forth works. It doesn't work, certainly in our benefit. What only works is taking more money, dumbing down the education system, putting our children out in criminal infested areas with this school to prison pipeline. All of these things do not work, not to mention sexualizing our children from elementary school on up. This does not work. This is all we need to do. Bring the facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go to you on this, Tyrone. What are your thoughts on that exchange?
With regard to education, I agree 1,000% because we're not even ranked anymore, the United States, that is, in the top 20 internationally. It's funny. There's an interesting contrast going on right now, miles above our head. The Chinese, who are not teaching drag queen story hour or subjective biology, they're building their own space station right now. Okay, it's coming along swimmingly. Meanwhile, Boeing and NASA have astronauts stranded in outer space, probably can't bring them back until 2025. I think that is a glaring indictment of our government school system. The other thing is the young lady is emblematic, and the heat that she takes is emblematic of how the left has never gotten their bigotry out of their DNA. Okay, the same exact attitude they had when they went to war to keep slaves, black slaves, they still have that DNA. And so they do not like forthright, intellectual black people, but they love Bakari Sellers. They love, what's the bald guy over at CNN? And I call CNN the crying
Vance.
Van Jones. Van Jones and Bakari Sellers, they're always crying. I call CNN crying Negro news because that's all that they do. They emote. Okay. That's the subservient. They got, what's the Billy Porter? There's a picture of Billy Porter kissing Biden's hands. Okay. Like he just got whipped within an inch of his life, and massa, don't do it no more type stuff. It's just, this is the type of black people they prefer. When you stand up and say, hey, listen, tell me some issues that would maybe make me think about voting your way. Oh, they can't do it. Kamala Harris still does not have one agenda item on her website. I just checked like a half an hour before we went live.
Yeah. Sit down and get in your place, Negro.
Right.
No questions. Right. Don't ask me any questions. Don't expect any answers. You just do what you're going to do and show up at the polls or bail. Or actually, you don't have to do that now. I'll come by your house and get your mail-in ballot. All you got to do is sign it. I'll put in who you're going to vote for. That's what they want.
That's right. That's right. Don't question, and we'll cut your foot off if you think you're going to run too far off this plantation, just like we did Kunta Kinte. Yeah, that's basically where they still are.
Right. Yeah. And they don't want you religious. They don't want you reading your Bible. They don't want you praying to some God. You better pray to me, government massa, every month or every year, or I tax you to the end of time. That's what they want us.
Government is the only thing we all belong to. That's what they said at the Democratic convention a few years ago. Government is the only thing we all belong to.
I mean, to respond to that video of that lady, she's amazing. And what's amazing about humans and human spirit is that even in difficult situations, difficult times, amazing people show up. And she is one of them. And there are many like her. So that's something, listening to her, it gives me hope for this country, and that hopefully more and more people will become vocal, will listen to each other, be supportive, and really, that's what this country is holding on, as these types of people.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute, KJ. I'm sorry. One thing we need to mention. Now, she was talking about the stats of the education system in Atlanta. Let's make a note that every major city across this country where the Democratic Party is in control, leftists, you can get that same trend. Baltimore, Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, everywhere, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New York City, you will get the same basic trend. Talk about macroeconomics, big trends. You'll get the same patterns across the country.
Absolutely. I mean, literally, where the Democrats are right now in Chicago, they have a dismal number of school kids who are illiterate. 25%. 25% are of Chicago school kids read at grade level. The rest of them are below. Right now, Chicago has 617 homicides for the year 2023. In 2023, they had 617 homicides. Let me see here. Number of residents lost in 2023, the 9th consecutive year of decline. Oh, so they're shrinking. The city is shrinking. They have negative 8,208 residents as of 2023. And the total budget for Chicago this year is $16.6 billion. So you know how they always say we don't have enough money. $16.6 billion is their budget. And this, like you mentioned, this is Baltimore. I could read off similar numbers. We had literacy rates, very low. I mean, it goes, like you said, city to city, where Democrats are in control.
Because Democrats are dumbing down curriculum. They're not actually demanding rigor from their schools, from their students. It's all about this DI, including everyone and making things easier instead of more complex and more challenging for children, because they need to pander to different minority groups. And so it's not about the money. You can throw so much money at something, at an education system, like in Baltimore. I think Baltimore City receives more money per child than any school system in the country. And they're not having any results because it's not about the money, it's about the policies. And if you have dumbed down policy curriculum, if you're not really if you're hiring teachers that are really activists, then they're not teachers. Right. You're going to have this terrible quality of education all over.
Yeah, but they have to keep it like that. Their primary group of people that vote Democrat are Black, and they want to keep Black people as dumb as possible. They don't want us reading. They don't want us looking at different information to educate ourselves on economics, on reading and writing, on different things. They don't want us learning this, because if we did, we would realize that what they're saying is incorrect, that they're lying.
Right. We're not, Americans are and have not been for a long time taught to critically think. Americans are comfortable with watching a box, and there's a person that comes on in the box and tells you what to think. This has been the trend for decades. Okay. And unfortunately, I don't see any way out of that unless people start to understand what's going on and start to just take their kids out of the school system and educate them using the resources and technologies that we have today. A lot of people, are especially Black, say, oh, well, so-and-so died for us to have the right to vote. A lot of Black people died for you to have the right to read too. And what's the last book you read, outside of high school? So we're not really focusing on economic or intellectual pursuits. And that way we become more susceptible to whatever the programming and suggestion is from those on high that want to set the agenda. And so you can get an abortion and vasectomy bank set up at the DNC. And, it's all good. People don't question it.
Nope.
Yeah, it's sad. They're too focused on the symbolism of everything, talking about, the first female president, the first Black president, and not concerned about these people are against school choice. These people, we've had Black on Black people in leadership in city across the country, and just what we mentioned, they're not doing a good job. So it's not about race. It's not about the symbolism. It's about your children and whether or not you believe that they deserve a chance, you know, a fair footing in life.
I didn't come up with this phrase. I'm borrowing it from Dennis Prager, but you know, he was the first one that I heard say freedom has to be taught. We might be born into a free society, relatively speaking, nowadays, but freedom has to be taught. It's not something that just you wake up and you start walking and you start learning. Like what did Kamala say? Freedom, the lie she told. No, it has to be taught. Right, it has to be taught. And many of us, many Americans, we seem to think the opposite, at least about human nature. But human nature, at its core, at its worst, if you will, or at its natural state, we want to be taken care of. Freedom goes in the opposite direction. So you have to be taught to not to want to be taken care of, to not to want to be a dependent.
Exactly. And yeah, human nature, they want to have a ruler.
Right.
Humans want to have a benevolent ruler, benevolent dictator, really. And it's natural, and you really have to understand that maybe at this point in time you agree with your benevolent dictator, but then a dictator may change.
Exactly.
And you may no longer agree with the next dictator's policies, but you won't be able to change anything because you have a system of dictatorship at this point. So dictatorships are very, they're people gravitate towards them, but then people get really, really hurt by them.
Yeah. And I think human history kind of proves that, you know, a lot of what you guys just stated, but I will say that I think we've also stumbled upon a nuance that's kind of based in gender, because I know a lot of men want independence. You'll look throughout history and you'll see that the people who eliminated Julius Caesar, they were guys. You know, they got fed up with, you know, what was going on. I mean, the people that eliminated Muammar Gaddafi were guys, you know, right there on the street and the higher up. So I think that in many ways, yes, it is true that women are the more nurturing of the species and desire some form of protection. I think a lot of men, unfortunately, this is decreasing in society, but a lot of men are intrepid. They crave independence. They crave being part of an organization, okay, and having an integral part in that organization. Hence the militaries of the world. But I think that as we slide further into Western destruction, you're seeing a lot of that change. You can look at the military and tell that none of the branches are making their recruitment goals.
Yeah, not only that, but we're seeing that I think the left and Marxists have caught on to that idea. And what are they doing now? They're actually trying to change the makeup of men. So this is why we're seeing, you know, they start out by encouraging single motherhood, breaking up families, encouraging, you know, separate families. You see the encouragement of this whole gender ideology and, you know, pushing sexuality on children at a young age. Really men, really boys. They're pushing on it because they want to change the makeup and of natural masculinity. And so if they are able to do that, then there goes the society. And we see it, you know, even in all the organizations and things going on, there's made up of women. Women are controlling everything. I mean, heck, they control the Democrat Party.
If you look at history, and even in the Old Testament, when you look at how different nations fought each other, they would take out the men. So it wasn't they would keep the women and the children, and once you take out the men or even the boys, if you think about when what was it in Egypt when they wanted to destroy the Israelites, the Egyptians wanted to destroy the Israelites, they said to kill the boys, the newborns. And because once you get rid of the males, you destroy the nation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, the East, it's so funny. The East is not, you know, having these types of issues. I watched a recruitment commercial for the U.S. Army. The title of the commercial was My Two Moms, okay, for the U.S. Army. And it was animated, and woman talked about how she, you know, participated in protest, and this is not what I want to hear, right? So I watched then an advertisement for the Russian army, and I'm like, damn, that guy, he's diving out of planes, he's shooting. I want to join the Russian army, right? Because this speaks to what a man wants, okay? What the protector in society, the traditional protector in society has wanted to see in terms of joining this team that will defend the homeland, his family, you know, his nation, so on and so forth. But they are watering that down. And it's like, oh my God, if the Russians and the Chinese team up and figure out a way to get over here, I'm just going to order Rosetta Stone Mandarin and start learning how to speak Mandarin, because it's just over. Okay.
I know. Well, we do have another super chatter here. I do want to acknowledge. Thank you so much. Rhonda says, my family doesn't understand me because I don't get my info from CNN and MSNBC. I research, and DNC isn't my belief. All right. Well, you got to keep working on them. Keep working on them, Rhonda. That's what we all do. We keep working on it. It's tough being, because I wouldn't say tough, but we've all been in the situation that Michaela has been in, you know, where it's like that was just one caller we showed that clip, but she was getting it. Multiple people were calling in nasty, pushing against her because she's a Black conservative. She held on. She did well, though. She did well. So definitely we're there where you are, Rhonda. I want to mention one last thing before we go. 11 o'clock tonight, guys, I am going live from my YouTube channel, the 8:30 show, and I'm going to talk about this from a spiritual perspective. So if you're up late like me and you're looking for something to watch on YouTube tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that's about almost a little less than 30, almost about 45 minutes from now, a little less than 45 minutes. I'm going live on 8:30's channel right here on YouTube, talking about the DNC, and I'm talking about all of the spiritual things going on that we didn't talk about tonight here. We're dealing with a lot of spiritual warfare, and it has to be called out. And so that's what I'm doing there, 8:30 show tonight on YouTube. Of course, we had Tyrone here tonight with shout out your channel, Tyrone. Tell people where they can find you here.
Sure. Thanks again for having me. The Soldiers of Finance channel right here on YouTube. We encourage you to come over and take a look, subscribe to the channel. We did a deep dive on a lot of the stuff we touched on today. And this week we're going to be focusing on more of Kamala's economic policy. So check us out.
All right, excellent. And I want to put my channel in the chat. Let me see here. Somebody's asking for me to put it in. I don't even know how to do it. Here's the link. Can production see that link and put it in there? Let's see here. All right. So I will be on 8:30 show in about a little less than 45 minutes, talking about this from a spiritual aspect, and then that's 8. Let me type it in. Sorry, 8:30 show right here on YouTube. So that's the link there, and then definitely check us out on YouTube there, 8:30 channel. All right, and we'll link this in the comments as well tonight, so you can check it out in the comments. All right, last thoughts, ladies. Last thoughts, Liana, before we go. Yana.
Well, as I always say, don't be afraid, get out there. It is scary to be a Republican, a conservative right now, but we have to be fighters. That's the only way. So we cannot lose this country. We have no other place to go. So get out there, be brave, make connections. Once you make more friends, it will be easier. And don't worry about those people who are bad mouthing you. They're not your friends. Get rid of them and don't listen to them.
All right. Shelly, any final thoughts for the audience?
I'm going to say, again, stand up, strap up, show up, and speak up. If you don't, then other people will speak for you. I'm a firm believer in that every person is the best person of his or her own story, as they like to say on the left. Well, the best story that I think that you have to have is to show up at the polls and vote to save our republic.
All right. All right, guys, that does it for us tonight. As I mentioned, if you're up late, you want to hang out with me a little bit more, 11 p.m. on the 8:30 show channel right here on YouTube. I am going through all of this from a spiritual perspective, from a faith-based perspective. So check me out, 8:30 show right here at 11 p.m. Talking about Tucker Carlson. He came out with some explosive information regarding this recently. So I want to dig into that and talk about it. All right. So again, this is Pop and Politics. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us tonight. Until next time, count your blessings and live a life of purpose. Good night.